So today we have the speaker for this lecture program by Dr. Jagadanand ji, who is currently working as an associate professor in the Department of Electrical Engineering, NIT Calicut. So he completed his PhD from NIT Calicut. His research includes multi-level inverters, power electronic drives in EV applications, and applications of AI in power electronics. In fact, he started his career as a senior research fellow in ERNDC at Trivandrum in 1992. There he attained the position as senior engineer in ITI, which is called Indian Telephone Industries Limited. So he has published 12 international publications and over 23 international conferences. Apart from that, I hope he has guided more than 4 PhD students and several MTech students at NIT Calicut. So he is one of the active researcher in the area of drives, especially. As I already mentioned in the yesterday program, NIT Calicut is very proud to inform that our faculty members are dedicatedly working in electric vehicle. SAR is also one of the member in the core team. Currently, we are setting up a very high-end drives lab up to the international standard with all the testing facilities. So with this brief introduction, I am very proud to introduce our speaker of the program, Dr. Jagadanand ji. Welcome you, sir, to the to our FDP. So audience, please make use of his session, and sir will give more information, especially in the condition monitoring. This is the one and only lecture we arrange in our FDPs. Though there are several FDP, we are several lecture we talk about the power electronics. This is the one and only session who will be talking on condition monitoring of FDP, condition monitoring of drives and related to electric vehicle application. So please make use of it. Thank you, Jagadanand sir, for joining with us. Please go ahead.
Good morning, all the participants. Thank you, Kumaravel sir, for the nice introduction. So we'll straight away go to the lecture session. Sir, Kumaravel sir, am I audible and my slide is visible?
Yeah, everything is perfect, sir. Voice is audible, slide is visible. Yes, perfect, sir. Perfect.
Okay, thank you. So I am working in condition monitoring of electric vehicle systems. So as you know, the vehicle system, you know, it is having a electric motor and a power supply. In between, you are having all other components like a battery charger is there, and then a DC-DC converter to convert the high voltage battery to the low voltage level for small motors, wipers, etc. So this is how the electric vehicle looks like, and dealing with the condition monitoring of all these items. So power electronics is playing an increasing role in the automobiles. The entire power is processed before it is utilized. So there comes the power electronics. So power electronics will enhance the output power and increase the efficiency of the total system. Okay, so without power, the electric vehicle. So what we need is we have to enhance the performance, enhance the safety level, luxury and functionality of the vehicle or the total system. So that is why power electronics is coming into picture. So before utilizing the power, it is first processed, and the unit used for the processing of the power is known as the power electronics. So today's world, especially in applications like electric vehicles, availability and reliability play a major role in terms of cost, in terms of time, as well as the reliability. Okay, so it improves the total reliability of electric drives, improves the availability and that is a very important aspect as far as the vehicle is concerned. So there are more than 200 individual loads, separate electric loads available in an electric vehicle. So the total power requirement for all these loads amounts to around 800 watts. So tail lamp, starter, fuel pump, wiper, blower fan. You can count the lot of equipments are available in a electric vehicle. So all of them consumes power from the battery. So all of them needs power of different levels, different polarity. That is why we are having the power electronics as a major component in the electric vehicle, and hence the reliability of the total system means the reliability of the power electronic system, isn't it? So more and more demands, as power electronics is improving, more demands are coming from the user side, more demands are coming from the load side. So definitely again power electronics will improve. So this is a cycle. For example, an HID lamp. Earlier we were having LED lamps, now we are having high intensity discharge lamps. So that's, it requires a ballast. So that ballast also is a power electronic solution. So it is to improve the efficiency, reliability, and the intensity of the light. It should be under the control of the driver. We are having what is called HID lamps. Okay, so for HID lamp to work, we need a better power electronic device. So we'll research and come out with better power electronics for suiting the HID lamp requirement. Okay, so even in the DC-DC converters, earlier we were talking about 1:2 boosting and all. Now that is not at all a value. We want into 10 boost, into 100 boost and all, isn't it? So maybe one cell of a photovoltaic cell will be giving you just 1 volt, 1.1 volt, whereas the battery is working at 400 to 600 volt, right? So that much boosting is required, which is totally done by the power electronics in electric vehicles. So it will be into 10 boost. Environmental conditions are to be satisfied, because of the power electronics and electric vehicle, the environmental conditions will be improved. It will reduce the emission from the electric vehicle. So electromagnetic interference is another major concern for electric vehicle, because any power electronic device will generate electromagnetic interference whenever you switch. Electromagnetic waves will be generated. It should not interfere with the nearby devices. It should not interfere with the other vehicles, etc. So electromagnetic interference is really a matter of worry for the designer. And then the reliability, told, if the vehicle has to run and you have to reach the destination, all these components should be having high reliability. That is the point. Okay, if any one of these power electronic device fails, maybe depending upon which power electronic device is failing, you may be handicapped, or your traveling itself have to be halted for some time. So that will create a lot of problem to you, because for example, we used to start from home just in time to catch a flight. So in between, if you have to halt for some time, you may miss your flight, and then that will create lot of havoc. So you have to avoid that. Reliability is becoming very, very important. That is where our condition monitoring is coming into picture. Okay, so we have seen that the power is playing a major role in almost all the electric vehicles. Without that, power electronic devices no electric vehicle can exist. Okay, so hybrid electric vehicles, locomotives, space mission, everywhere you can see power electronics. So if all this vehicle has to work properly, the power electronic devices reliability also must be improved, and its availability depends upon the reliability of the power electronic system. So one common but major concern is the reliability. It is responsible for economic or safety consideration, both economic as well as safety. For example, I have told you if you miss the flight, you have to take a new ticket, keep your journey to the next day. So that creates a lot of money. That costs a lot for you in terms of money, reliability. Yeah, your credibility also will be affected, right? Yeah. So all those matters finally comes to the economics, and of course the safety also. Suppose your braking system of the vehicle is failed due to a failure of the power electronic unit. What will happen? It may result in an accident. So that is has to be anyhow avoided. So that is what is the safety aspect mentioned in this slide. Yeah. So if the reliability is not good, people may not depend upon such a system. For example, photovoltaic system. If your house is powered by a photovoltaic system, maybe your inverter failed one day. You may call the authorized person. He may come and repair in 1 day or 2 days. You may be okay with that, but if the failure repeats next week, then you will do. You better keep the photovoltaic system aside and then try to use the main grid itself to power your home, right? So the total system will be discarded due to low availability. So same is the case with the vehicle also. If your vehicle fails once in a while, it's okay. You may go ahead with that, but if the failure repeats, definitely you will not depend upon such a vehicle. You will keep such a vehicle aside and then you will depend upon other vehicles. So that is one problem associated. Okay, so nearly zero failure is failure to the tolerance. That is the problem associated with the vehicle. Okay, so you cannot afford to have a failure in the vehicle. In between your travel, you cannot have that. So that is what is told here. Zero failure to the tolerance. So approach to reliability problems of the power electronic system. So there are many methods available to enhance the reliability of the power. So mainstream efforts include standard-based reliability assessment. When you design the system itself, you go as per the standard, IEEE standard or IES standard, or many vehicle standards are available. So design the system adhering to such standards so that it will improve the reliability of the system. That is a standard-based reliability assessment is basically used at the time of the designing of the system. Then fault-tolerant topology. If you are having one MOSFET, you attach one more MOSFET to it, so that when one MOSFET fails, another MOSFET will take part and then come into picture, and then it will play the role of the switch, so that the failure can be avoided. Even if some delay will be there between the replacement of the failed component with the new components. That should happen automatically by sensing the status of the existing MOSFET and then switching over to a new MOSFET on the event of a failure, in the event of a failure. Okay, so that also is part of the monitoring. And then only when you understand that a failure has occurred, you can identify the failed component and replace it with a new component or good component. Okay, so it should be an automatic process, not a manual process. So that is what is told as the second point, fault tolerant topology. Okay, yeah, but the problem is there you need a component, a redundant component. It will be costly, and occupied the redundant component also will be coming into picture. So it will be occupying more space, and to that extent, many people don't prefer to have. But from the first point, nearly zero failure, we may have to go to such modes. Then prognostics. That is of the most promising method of enhancing the reliability. So we'll be discussing on this aspect. Okay, so we have done a lot of work on the prognostics of the motor, prognostics of the inverters, other okay. So ultimately, all the systems should be available. All the individual systems should be available. Then only you can ensure the reliability of the total system. Yeah. So the third one is the most promising approach once the design is done perfectly. Okay. So designing high reliable power electronic devices using advanced materials. Yeah, we have seen now the silicon carbide materials. They are used in electric vehicles. So that will enhance the reliability definitely. So that is one of the possible methods to enhance the reliability. Use advanced materials, advanced manufacturing technology, advanced components, advanced levels of components, so that the power electronic systems reliability improves like that. Yeah, so you know every microcontroller cannot be used in for a microcontroller to be used in electric vehicle. It has to satisfy basic standards. It has to go through various tests conducted by the standard agencies, and only if they certify, you can use such components in electric vehicles. So that also is a method to enhance the reliability of the total system and the availability of the total system. Yeah. So failure is completely preventable. Even if you do all these precautions, we cannot ensure that 100% it will be fault proof. Okay, so that is where the third point, the prognostics and the prediction condition monitoring is coming into picture. So if you can predict the failure, definitely you can take action before the failure occurs. So that's where the lifetime prediction is coming into picture. You, for example, you monitor the performance of a system and identify that some parameters are varying. All on a sudden, some parameters are varying when operating that device. So what we can predict, it is going to end in moments, or you can predict that there can be a failure occurring for that particular system, maybe a power electronic system, maybe a motor, maybe a mechanical system. It is going to fail in, say, 1 hour or 1 day or 1 month, etc. So that is called the lifetime prediction. So there are lot of methods available for the lifetime prediction of components, systems, etc. When I mention system, it can be a power electronic system, it can be a motor, it can be a drive, it can be a mechanical system, etc. A gearbox, for example. Right? So yeah, we need not have a gearbox now, but in general, I am telling you. So how can you predict the life of that device? So initially, you can predict totally how many years it can work under these circumstances, and then you can count how many hours have passed, how many cycles were passed, and then you can tell this much more cycles it can work, this much more years it can work, this much more months it can work, like that. So that is the lifetime prediction mechanism. So if you can predict the lifetime, what you can do? You can do preventive maintenance, right? Preventive maintenance means you replace that component before the failure occurs. as I have told today, when I drive from my home institute, I observed that there is a sound generated in the rear side of my vehicle. So what I will do, I will take it to an expert and tell this is happening. So what before the failure occurs next time, that is tomorrow it may fail. Before that occurs, I will take the help of an expert to identify the sound, where the sound is coming from, what is the reason for the sound, and then if it is due to some components or a system, replace that system with a system which will be more reliable and having more life. Okay, so that is it. So lifetime prediction models are available. It can be in the design stage itself using the MTBF information of the components, or the model you can develop from the statistics, over a period of time, say 10 years. Maruti is having a model or Tesla is having a model. So when a failure occurs in the Tesla vehicle, they will collect all the information regarding the reasons for the failure. Suppose this particular MOSFET is continuously failed in some 10 vehicles over a period of 1 week or 1 month. That data will be collected by Tesla and that will be made available for the designer. So the designer will look into that particular MOSFET and identify what is the reason for the failure of that particular MOSFET. Okay, and how can that failure be avoided in the future design? Right? So that is one practical method available. So even we want to avoid first time failure also. So that is why we have to use the condition monitoring methods. Okay. So new design, of course, you can incorporate the data or the parameters you have collected from the failed systems. Okay, so that statistics can be used. The voltage, current, power parameters can be used so that the design can be enhanced or you can result in a better design. So the failure can be reduced. So in applications or systems can provide information on the remaining useful time. So this is what I have told you. So how many more hours your system can work, how many more hours your motor can take, how many more cycles your MOSFETs can switch, right? So that is called the remaining useful time. Or level of degradation can be used for identifying the remaining useful time. That is one method. Or the statistics, as I have told you, available by the manufacturer. If it is a standard manufacturer, they will collect all the information regarding the failure, and then that can be used as a data for better design in future. So studies show that major of the power electronic systems failure are due to component failures. Life estimation of the power electronic device is multidisciplinary. It needs electrical engineers to tell how this failure has occurred. Is it due to dielectric failure? Is it due to mechanical failure? Is it due to temperature that it failed? Is it due to the electromagnetic interference it failed? Right. So electrical engineers is definitely required in the analysis and identification of the reason for the failure. Mechanical engineers, yeah. For example, the thermal failure. Due to the cyclic temperature will increase, it will come down, it will again increase like that. So the cycles of temperature can cause many failures. So mechanical engineers are, and also the stress and strain due to the expansion and the contraction of the material, that also can cause mechanical failure. So mechanical engineers are required there, and then statistics definitely. Yeah, this many devices are failed due to these reasons. So statistics are required, and then mean time between failure (MTBF) is another parameter used by the designers to enhance the design. And of course, nowadays, artificial intelligence and machine learning is coming into picture in the condition monitoring, lifetime prediction, remaining useful life prediction. Everywhere, the machine learning is now employed. Okay? So continuously, you need to monitor the performance. Maybe various parameters such as pressure, temperature, vibration, voltage, current, whatever may be the parameter we are measuring, it will be ultimately processed using many modern signal processing techniques, and the parameters are fed into a machine, right? So machine means algorithm here. So machine learning techniques are used. Models are predictive models can be formed using machine learning techniques, support vector machines, or any such machine learning techniques. So it can predict in how many hours your device can fail, or how many more months of life your device is having, etc., or what is the cause or reasons for the failure, etc. So machine learning is widely used in the condition monitoring nowadays. So we need to understand the dominant failure mechanism in order to predict the lifetime of the power electronic device. What is the reason for the failure? If you know that, then only you can predict the lifetime, and only you can come up with a better design, better reliability of the system. Okay. So failure mechanism should be understood. So proper lifetime prediction techniques you have to select. You need to know the failure mechanism, whatever may be the component. For example, if it is a MOSFET failure, what is the mechanism for the failure you should know. Then only you can prevent that failure. If it is a motor also, what is the reason for the failure of the motor you should know. Then only you can prevent that failure in future. So power electronic devices experience thermal, chemical, electrical, and mechanical stress. Various stresses are available, especially in applications such as electric vehicles. You don't have any control over the environment of the electric vehicle. Today it may be passing through a very cold environment, minus 20 degrees centigrade. Tomorrow you have to go to a very high temperature environment, maybe in a place where the temperature goes up to 40 degrees centigrade. Places like Delhi, you know, the temperature will be minus 4 degree in the morning, and it will be 40 degrees centigrade in the noon time on the same day, right? So in these extreme climates, your vehicle should ride without any failure. Okay. Yeah, so that is called the thermal stress. Yeah, I don't think that the environment is do not have effect on the failure mechanism. Definitely it is having. Okay. Because the cycles is created due to the operation, but the surroundings also will be playing a major role in the working of the device. So yeah, when you switch a device, turn on the device, and it is carrying say hundreds of amperes of current, definitely the temperature will rise instantaneously. Of course, you are having a heat sink and all to remove that heat generated, and then it will cool down. The maximum and minimum temperature at which it is operating depends upon the environment also. As I have told you, minus 20 degrees centigrade to plus are reasons for the thermal stress and the chemical. Today it may be raining. The rainwater on the first day, the rainwater will contain all the kinds of chemicals, right? And yeah, after some 4 or 5 days continuous raining, the rainwater will become more and clear. Initial rain, that water will have all the chemicals in it, so much acidic nitric oxide, nitrous oxide, etc. will come into the water, and then that will be making that water totally acidic. So lot of chemical abuse also will happen if you don't cover the device properly. Okay, so similarly fumes will be there, dust will be there. So you should prevent the failure due to the chemical abuse. Then electric, as you know, the voltage can be going beyond the set value. The current can go beyond the set value due to a failure in the load side, failure in the input side, etc. So that will cause electric stress on the devices. Mechanical stress, yeah, mainly due to thermal reasons or jerk in the device. Car is going, falling into a gutter, or it is jumping over a hump, right? It can definitely cause huge stresses, mechanical stresses, okay, due to in all the directions you will experience force. Okay, so that is the mechanical abuse. So all these reasons, or the thermal, chemical, electrical, mechanical reasons, can cause failure to the components or the system. Okay, so once one component fail, it can propagate the failure to the other systems and finally leading into a complete failure. So especially for electric hybrid vehicle, yeah, if it is a hybrid electric vehicle, you know, the IC engine is very hot. So if you keep the power electronic device near the IC engine, the thermal stress will again increase for the device. Okay? So vibration, shock, I have told you examples. They are also reasons. And the failure of the power electronic devices component. One is chip related, it is called intrinsic. Another one is package related or extrinsic failures. Okay. Yeah. So electric overstress also can intrinsic failure. Extrinsic failures are basically due to thermomechanical overstresses, vibrations, or cycling increase to very high temperature instantly and cool down instantly. So that is called thermal cycling. Okay, so that can also cause extrinsic failure. Whereas if you suddenly a high dV by dt is appearing, that causes an intrinsic failure or high di by dt. Of course, we will have mechanisms in our design to take care of this high dV by dt, high di by dt kind of thing, but which is naturally happening. But if that dV by dt and di by dt is happening due to an unforeseen circumstance, a failure in another module, we cannot avoid, or we are not happen, and then that will become a overstress, and it can cause an intrinsic failure or chip related failure. Okay, so we are now on the reasons for failure, how the failure is occurring. Another major problem or the mismatch of the coefficient of thermal expansion. Okay. Now new technologies or die attached will reduce the failure due to difference in the coefficient of thermal expansion or mismatch in the coefficient of thermal expansion. That is because we have analyzed and found out that the coefficient of thermal expansion mismatch is causing this failure. Engineers have come out with where the die bond wires are attached to the die itself, so the failure is reduced. Okay, so power tools tend to tremendously increase the reliability. So all which used to happen in the power electronic devices were reduced by such researchers, and it is now minimized to minimize the load, and it enhance the reliability of the power electronic devices, components, and hence the power electronic system as a whole. So still it in an embryonic stage. So lot of researches has to happen in this area even now. Okay. So probability could be prohibitively expensive. Yeah, that is another reason. One is it is in embryonic stage. Another reason is even if we are having solution, it is costing a lot. So both these areas are we have to explore. Now new researchers have to explore so that better devices will result the reliability of the total system. So even now, for example, we were talking, but a single point failure here is there, where just an example, the electric field strength stronger than a similar same rating silicon device, silicon MOSFET of 1000 volt. If it is having X as the field strength, the silicon carbide device of 1000 volt is having 3x field strength in the, so that will become more vulnerable for failure. Okay, more possibility for the failure of that oxide layer is there. It is not 3 times, much more than 3 times failure rate is there. So that is one reason why silicon carbide is still not very popular in electric vehicles. Okay. Conventional, yeah, definitely it will improve. That is what I have told you in the last slide. There is a lot of option for us to enhance the reliability of the devices. Conventional power electronic devices are likely to domain in the near future. Okay, so this is one of the reasons to tell this. But I know that the silicon carbide or gallium nitride device will come out avoiding such failure possibilities in near future because a lot of researches are happening in that area. Yeah. So chip related failure mechanisms. One is the dielectric breakdown. Yeah, gate oxides. Defects called time dependent dielectric breakdown. So initially it will be a small effect, but it may pile up as the time passes and finally it will break down in the dielectric. So that is time dependent dielectric breakdown, TDDB. And then yeah, three defect generating mechanisms are impact ionization, anode hole injection, and trap creation. Yeah, so these are three different reasons for the failure mechanism. Catastrophic or acute dielectric breakdown occurs when the device experiences several electric or thermal stress, severe electric or thermal stress, over voltage, electrostatic discharge, etc. Increased gate current and decreased in the drain current are observed in MOSFETs which are about to fail. Okay, where the dielectric breakdown is about to happen. Okay, so usually the gate current will be negligible. Only the charging current required to charge the gate source capacitance. But if there is a possibility for failure, we can see that this gate current is increasing. Right. Another one is the latching up. Okay. Yeah. So mechanism is again, as you know, as you studied in the case of SCR, the MOSFETs and IGBTs can also latch up. Okay, so latching up mechanism can happen. Means the gate will lose the control. The entire current will flow through the device. Even if you remove the signal from the gate, it will not turn off. So that is called latching up. Okay, so the latching up mechanism is due to high dV by dt or high di by dt in some cases. So the high current can continuously flow. Even if you are having a heat sink, it cannot remove the heat generated, so it can destroy the device. Okay, so the latching is caused due to high dV by dt, a sudden rate of change of voltage across the IGBT or MOSFET due to any reason, maybe a failure of the next component, nearby component, or a load itself or the source itself. So due to that, a high dV by dt, within a small time, huge voltage change can happen. So it can latch up. Such devices can latch up, means the gate cannot further control the on and off of the device. Okay. So if the situation continues, high temperature can totally destroy the device. Okay. Similarly, a high use a latch. Other than the dV by dt, if temperature is increased, even smaller dV by dt can cause a latch. Okay. So electromigration, it is another reason for the failure. So, and high current density in the silicon, the electrons will migrate from one point to the other. The void will be formed in between the metal contacts. That is the problem. So initially, a small void will be generated. As the time passes, the void increases. And finally, it results in an open circuit there in between the metal contacts. So that is called the electromigration. So that should be avoided somehow by avoiding high current density. So you see, high current density is part of modern SiC devices, silicon carbide devices. But we should find alternate mechanisms electromigration. A designer of one cross section of the MOSFET or IGBT or such device, you are having a bond wire made of one material, chip is made of silicon or silicon carbide. In between silicon and copper contact, you are having a solder, that is another material, and the ceramic is there to one electrode from the other electrode, so that is ceramic, and then under that you are having another copper to remove the heat from the chip, and then that copper is soldered with the base plate using a solder. All these are made out of different layers, and different layers are from different materials. Each of these material is having its own coefficient of thermal expansion. Understood? Suppose in this system the temperature increases. What will happen? This chip is expanding due to increase in temperature. This bond wire also is expanding. This copper also is expanding, but their coefficient of thermal expansion is different. So what will happen? This chip will expand more, but the bond wire will expand less. So from this point to this point increases because this expands more and this expands less. So this bond wire will experience a stress. Okay. So in some cases, this bond wire will experience a stress. In some cases, it will be experiencing a strain. So due to this difference in the coefficient of temperature, thermal expansion, the distance between the 2 points will increase. So the connecting wire or whatever is there in between, it will experience stress or strain depending upon the situation. If the temperature is increasing, it will be stretched. If the temperature is decreasing, it will be compressed. Okay. So this process of stretching and compressing happen when you now turn on the device, the temperature will increase. When you turn off the device and remove the temperature or heat generated, the temperature will decrease. So, it will be happening some 20,000 times, 300,000 times in 1 second. Imagine the stress and strain experienced by the wires. Similar is the case with the solder also. The solder its own coefficient of temperature expansion. Chip is having its own, copper is having its own. So all the three are different, due to which the solder also will experience some stretch or compression. So when it compressed, it will expand to side also. It will be flattened. When it is stretched, it will be shrinked. Okay, so all these will causing, very slow. Even if it is very slow, it can cause failure in this point, either in this point or in this point or in this point. Okay, so whenever there is a possibility of difference in the temperature coefficient, coefficient of the thermal expansion, there can be a point of failure. Okay, so this is called heel point. This is called solder point. So the solder, this bonding can come out, so that the connection will fail. No current can flow. Connectivity between these 2 points will fail. Okay, so it may be a slow process, but it can happen. Many failures are happening due to that bond wire failure or the solder fatigue, etc. This is what is explained in the next few slides. Okay, so this is a. So how can you avoid that? You design with better material, better connecting material, better chip material, better solder material, better base plate material, and then in between also you can provide materials to take care of this. Suppose you are having a spring in between, then what will happen? The spring will take care of the stress, and it will not pass the stress and strain to the solder and the chip. Like that, new technologies will be developed so that the fatigue due to the thermal cycling is totally avoided. Okay, so bond wires are normally used to connect, aluminum bond wires are normally used. So bond wire failure can happen, solder failure can happen, and the aluminum reconstruction can happen, right? So we have to avoid all these things. The bond wire failure itself can be due to bond wire leak off and bond wire heel cracking. Okay, so that is what I have told you. So come out from the point of contact, or the heel cracking can occur on the surrounding point. It can crack and it can generate a void there. Once the void is generated, the resistivity or resistance of that point of contact is increased. Automatically the heat generated at that point will be more. That will again increase the void, that will again increase the resistance, etc. So that is a positive feedback mechanism, finally resulting in a total failure of the point of contact. Okay, so these are the mechanisms. Thermal cycling. Crack will be further increased, etc., etc. Positive mechanism. That is what is explained in this as a. Okay. Two solder layers I have already shown you that. due to CT mismatch, coefficient of thermal expansion mismatch, it can cause failure. Okay. So solder attached layers that the thermal cycle increases. So the thermal impedance can increase, resulting in a higher temperature in the die, accelerating the propagation of the void. Then it can ultimately fail the device. Maybe a MOSFET, maybe a IGBT or whatever device it is. So heating up, overheating can the root cause of the latching up failure on turn on. Aluminum reconstruction, the silicon depositing one area, the silicon will be removed and it will be depositing, getting deposited on the other area. So that is called aluminum reconstruction. Void, once the void is formed, the resistance is increased. So the table gives you a failure mechanism versus where the failure will occur, failure and the of the failure. For example, the TDB we have already discussed, it is caused in the oxidation layer. Okay, and then it can cause over voltage, high electric field. All these can cause in the oxide location, oxide layer. Okay, and then it loss of the gate control and short circuit can occur. Threshold voltage is one of the parameters affect failure. TDB. Like that, latch up, bond wire solder failure, determination of die attach. All these are discussed in this table. Yeah, lifetime prediction method, it can be from physics of failure method or empirical lifetime method. So you can form empirical equations by parameters that causes the failure. So that is why I have told you in the beginning, only if you know the causes of failure, you can predict the lifetime and prevent that failure. Okay, or at least you can do a preventive maintenance. So before failure occurs, you can replace the component with a new component. Failure can be totally avoided like that. Okay, suppose you are having your motor, it will fail in 24 hours. So what you can do, at the end of the day, in the evening, you can replace the motor. That can be a scheduled maintenance without affecting your working. Okay, so schedule will not be affected by that, because you know that this motor is about to fail in 24 hours. So in the evening, at the end of the day, you can arrange scheduled maintenance, scheduled replacement. Okay, so that is the advantage of condition monitoring. Yeah, if you want to know the lifetime, remaining lifetime, you have to, yeah, one method is you can use empirical lifetime equations, empirical equations to predict the lifetime, or you can monitor the parameters. So degradation can be monitored. That is the physics of failure method. So either of these two methods can be used to predict the lifetime and hence schedule a maintenance. So scheduled preventive maintenance can totally avoid the failure. To avoid failure. Okay. So that is why this topic is very important today. We cannot afford to have any failure whatsoever for a vehicle component. Okay, because in between your travel, if the vehicle fails, it will cause a lot of problem to you. That will become a unreliable vehicle altogether to you. Okay. So failure is the lifetime prediction. Yeah, bond wire failure, solder failure, fatigue, I have already explained to you why that is happening. That is how we can go ahead and solve that problem. Okay. Yeah. So models for failure mechanisms are not mutually exclusive. Both failures, bond wire failure mechanism and solder wire failure, solder fatigue, both of them are depending on each other. So predicting one will automatically give a prediction on the other. Okay, so that is what I told here. Indeed, some modes are interchangeable also. Yeah, predicting one method, it can directly give a estimation on the other failure also. Yeah, first method based on the failure mechanisms, based on precursor parameters. Okay, so these are the two methods available for the power electronic module failure. Okay, so based on failure mechanism, we have just now seen the fatigue or bond wire failure, etc. Precursor prediction is based on the degradation that happens on the device. Maybe motors or systems like that, or capacitors, batteries, etc. Okay, so precursors are nothing but the indicators for the failure. So all the various identified as lifetime prediction mainly focuses on package related failures. Okay, so empirical method and physics of failure method we see. Yeah, for example, just one example I am discussing here, bond wire failure methods. So here we are going to derive a empirical relation between NF, delta T and Tm. Okay, where NF is the number of cycles to failure. How many more cycles my IGBT can turn on and turn off? How many more times you can turn on and turn off your IGBT before it fails? That is called NF, right? And then temperature swing, delta Tj. You are taking the MOSFET to 100 degrees centigrade when full current passes, and then you, when the MOSFET is turned off, you remove the temperature or heat energy so that the temperature comes down to 25 degrees centigrade. So 100 minus 25, 75 degree is the temperature swing. Okay, yeah. So that is one parameter. Another parameter is afford. My device, it can work at 7 without. Okay, so that is the mean temperature at which I can operate the device. So that parameter will be given by the manufacturer. But delta Tj is a design parameter. In my inverter, I am putting a heat sink of this dimension, this material, this temperature resistance. Temperature swing will be between these 2 points, 100 degree to 25 degrees centigrade, right? So that is totally my design parameter, totally depending on my system's design, whereas Tm is given by the manufacturer and the NF can be identified in my system. You see, my DC-DC converter operating at 300 kilohertz, 300 switchings can happen in my MOSFET. And this vehicle is running this much distance during this or this day, 4 hours, my vehicle will be running for say 100 kilometers or 50 kilometers or 10 kilometers. So that decides N. Okay. Yeah. So not so easy to calculate even if you can have a empirical relation, you can derive an empirical relation connecting NF delta Tj Tm. From that, you can predict. Okay, so if you know the remaining, my device can sustain. I can predict how many more days my system will work without a failure. Okay, so that example I have taken this bond wire failure analysis. So this is empirical j to the power of alpha. Alpha is a constant into e by RTM. Tm I have told you mean temperature. Delta T I have told you the temperature swing. Okay. The Q is joules per molule. That's a constant. Alpha I am putting as -5. From my statistical analysis, I have identified alpha. A is Kelvin mark. Okay. Yeah. A equal to 640. That is another constant I am having. All this I have derived using my statistical model. Maybe I can use FEM also to reach into the empirical equation. Okay, so this is an empirical equation. You should note that many such empirical equations are available in the literature. You can definitely derive your own empirical relation, which gives better prediction, enhances prediction. Okay, an Arrhenius model. This model is called Coffin-Mansion Arrhenius model. This scientists have come out with this particular equation. That is why it is called Coffin-Mansion Arrhenius model. It connects only delta Tj and Tm, temperature swing and the mean temperature. But as an electrical engineer, I know that the peak current and the duration of the current, you know, the duration on the duty ratio. I am keeping it on for say 0.01 microsecond and off for 0.1 microsecond. Again turning it for keeping it on for 0.01 microsecond and turn off for 0.05 microsecond. That decides my duty ratio. That duty ratio is decided by the boost you want or buck you want or the voltage you want at the output, etc. Right? So that is duty ratio is totally controlled by my system requirement. But this NF is having a role, or this duty ratio or time at which, for which this high current, say 100 ampere is passed through the device for 0.05 microseconds. Then I am leaving it microsecond. My temperature definitely depends upon this duty ratio. This current of 100 ampere is one parameter. This 0.05 microsecond is one parameter. 0.01 microsecond is another parameter deciding the temperature swing. Definitely the peak temperatures, maximum temperature and minimum temperature decided by the peak current or average current 100 ampere, 0.05 microsecond on time, through which it will carry this current, 0.05 microsecond the off time, during which it will not carry any current. All these parameters decide the temperature swing, right? But these parameters are not part of my empirical equation. So even if this predicts the number of cycles before failure, it may not be that accurate. So what I can do, I can derive a new expression, my current, the duration, etc. Voltage also is a parameter here. Duty ratio, current, etc. Right? Yeah. So there, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, beta 4, beta 5, beta 6, they are all constants derived from the data available or the experiment I am conducting. So there comes another empirical equation is much better than the previous empirical equation. So this is what I have told you. You can also fit such a empirical equation which will give a better NF value, better prediction to the remaining useful life of the MOSFET or IGBT or the capacitor or the motor or the storage. So such prediction or empirical equation derivation is a key area of research for you. Understood? So just now I have explained to you from the initial model, predict that these parameters can also affect so that you can come out with a better model. Understood? So this is how the prediction is improving, or even a better model is derived, and that can give you a better prediction. So the scheduling of the maintenance definitely be better, and you will have minimum error in the prediction. Okay, using this model, what you can do, you can predict the number of cycles before the failure. So maybe in some cases, I predict that I am having, say, 10 to the power of 5 more cycles, this MOSFET fails. But unfortunately, it fails, say, 9.8 into 10 to the power of 4 cycles itself. If that, there is a chance that I am waiting till the last cycle to replace the MOSFET in order to reduce my cost, right? If I am replacing my MOSFET before that 10 to the power of 5, say in 10 to the power of 4 cycles itself, I replace my MOSFET. What will happen? It enhances my reliability and availability, but what will be the negative side of it? I have to pay more money for that. I need more MOSFETs to replace about to fail MOSFETs. This MOSFET can work for some more time, but I replace it at an failure. Totally, I want to avoid the failure, right? So that way, better prediction, then my cost of maintenance, cost the components, cost of the total system availability, reliability is also comes down. So that is my engineering in the condition monitoring. How can I derive a better model so that I can get an accurate value for NF, so that I can accurately schedule the maintenance to reduce the cost. Okay, I want to enhance reliability, no doubt about it, but I can't spend lot of money on that. So how can I reduce the money of maintenance, cost of maintenance? So, and also increase the enhance the reliability and avoid the failure to the extent 99.9%, 99.99%. I want to avoid the failure. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, 0.01% is with God. Somehow that also is playing, right? We can't avoid that. Yeah, whatever technology we tell, but it can be more and more near to the actual things, facts. Okay. So this is one area where if you can research and come out with better models so that the cost can be reduced, the component requirement can be reduced, you can better utilize the available components and systems, etc. Yeah. So there, the beta 1 to beta 6 are obtained from statistical data. That also is a prediction. You can again work on the better values for beta 1 to beta 6 so that the NF value prediction is better. Okay. So like that, you can have bond wire failure models also. Bond wire models, failure models also are available. So a lot of such models are now available in literature. IEEE papers are available with those models, and go ahead with your own model. Definitely is enhance the capability to predict the number of cycles or the time to failure, etc. Okay, Norris Langhans model is just demonstrated here, just to give a feel of different models that are available in the literature. T hot represents the time per cycle that device is hot. When the motor, I mean, when my vehicle is going in a downhill, will happen, my motor take any current, right? Even motor can regenerate at that time. So when the motor is not taking any current, my inverter MOSFET is not handling any current. So my inverter MOSFET is not having any stress. It will not contribute to number of cycles, right? More number of cycles it can operate, right? Yeah. So that is what T hot. That also can be. What is the current that is handled now? When the motor is having full load, definitely the MOSFET also will be operating with full current. But when the motor is running with especially when it is going in a downhill, in a flat surface with a low speed, the current taken by the motor and hence the current in the MOSFET also is less. So you can, that MOSFET can work more number of cycles. Okay, be incorporated into your model. Like that, many possibilities are there to enhance the reliability of the model itself. Okay, prediction can be much better, improved. Yeah. So from that model, you can also reach in such graphs. Some graphs will give you the crack length versus number of cycles. If you are having a crack length of 0.02 microns, then it can operate some 2000 cycles. Okay, but when it operates for cycles, the crack length will increase to 0.04 microns. So if the crack length increases, you know, the resistivity will increase, resistance in that point will increase, it will become a hotspot, etc. So that will be with the delta EP in this equation. Delta EP is what we are discussing, and delta EP is 0.0029, it can result like this. But when the delta EP is 0.0029, it will result like this. Okay, so number of cycles is 2 into 10 to the power of 5. It will be crack length is 0.02. 4 into 10 to the power of 5, and the crack length is 0.04, etc. Okay, whereas it is just 2000 when delta EP is 0.0029, and 1000 when delta EP is, I mean, length is 0.0, and LP is 0.0029, like that. Yeah, so the point of failure, physics of failure, temperature swing, the point of thermal expansion, etc., are taken into account, and you can use finite element analysis, FEM method. Okay, so finite element analysis, a lot of softwares are now available which can take these parameters like the temperature maximum, minimum, length of the wire, coefficient of temperature expansion of different materials. Okay, when there is a mismatch, the failure can happen. So all those parameters put into such softwares, and it can predict the number of cycles before failure. So that is called physics of failure model. Okay, so and analysis can be done using proper softwares. Many softwares are now available to do the finite element analysis to predict the lifetime of the device, and hence the remaining useful time prediction can be done. Yeah, and then if you get these enough MOSFETs, different diodes, different IGBTs, different capacitors in the system, then you can add them together using Miner's rule tells that the damage effect can be linearly accumulated. What is that? Yeah. So the total LC lifetime is N1 by NF1 plus N2 by NF2 plus N3 by NF3 etc. into 100%. Okay, where NF1 is, for example, the number of cycles before failure for MOSFET 1, NF2 is the number of cycles before failure of the diode in this, NF3 is the number of cycles before failure for another semiconductor device in series, etc. Okay, and N1 is the number of cycles of MOSFET, N2 is the number of cycles of the diode in series, which is already operated, etc. Okay, so like that, using this Miner's rule, that is linearly accumulating this thing, the prediction, you can achieve total lifetime of the system by NF1 means the number of cycles plus N2 by NF2 the number of plus N3 by F3 number of cycles of another semiconductor, etc. Okay, so that is how you can get the total lifetime of the system if the individual number of cycles of the semiconductor devices or the capacitors, etc. are calculated using the methods we have already discussed in the previous slides. Okay, and to calculate, you can use rain flow counting method. For example, in European roads, you are having a cycle available already. Indian road, another cycle is available. In US road, another cycle is from the studies, statistical data is available in the net. So if you want to design a vehicle for India, yeah, in India itself, for Delhi, the cycle is different. For Trivandrum, the cycle is different. Chennai, the cycle is okay. Yeah. So the cycles, how the cycle will be, which is already predicted, is available in the website. You take that, and then from so rainfall counting can be used to determine how many times my MOSFET should turn on and off. Okay, so to that extent, you can identify, again, use that data, number of cycles available for failure now for my MOSFET. That MOSFET also working in this position, this many cycles, working in that position, this many cycles, like that you can predict. Okay, yeah, so for that prediction you can use, or to identify the number of cycles that already had and useful number of cycles again you can use rain flow counting method. That is one of the most widely used number of counting method to identify number of cycles happen. Okay, yeah. Failure precursor method is another beautiful method where you can do lot of research. Understand? What is it? Is the forerunner or indicator of approaching events. Failure, any event, for example, okay, before the failure occurs, this indication will come out, or this is the before that occurs, this you can observe. They are called precursors. So you can analyze the precursors to identify the failures. So for that also you can do research. Because the failure mechanism we have already identified, different failure mechanism components. For example, failure mechanism for battery is totally different from failure mechanism of your motor. That is totally different from the failure mechanism of your diode. That is totally different from failure mechanism of your IGBT or MOSFET. Okay, and hence the precursors are also different. So you can studies, do research, and identify the precursors of failure for different devices. Okay, so that change with device degradation. As the device degrades, these parameters will change. Okay, now parameters and identify how much degradation had happened. Maybe the device. Okay, so that can indicate an, or you can predict the lifetime of the device, remaining useful time of the device. Okay, so what you identify the precursor. Precursor is the indicating parameter. Blankly it is not available. From experience only you will understand and be vehicle. He may ride for a distance, and he will monitor the vibration of the vehicle and identify the possible cause of the failure. Am I right? Same way, you operate your device, monitor various parameters and identify a possible parameter which will always indicate a failure, possible failure. Okay? So such parameters are called precursors. So identified by accelerated aging test. What is that? Yeah, how to identify the parameter which will indicate a failure. That is called precursor. So how to identify a precursor is a question. For that, you can do accelerated aging test. Suppose your MOSFET is operating at 10 ampere. 1 year, what you can do, this 1 year condition can be artificially created by accelerated aging. Accelerated aging by operating it either at increased temperatures or operate the device at a higher current or higher voltage which is not envisaged. Accelerated aging. So when you put a device into accelerated process, we intentionally increasing the temperature by putting the device in a oven and increasing the temperature inside the oven for a higher temperature, which is under control, definitely under control. You can age the device, increase the age of the device. Oh, 100 ampere continuously, I pass to 1 second, so that it is not fail, it didn't fail, but its age is increased, so that the is decreased. So that also, so that process is called accelerated aging test. Or voltage, suppose I apply a 100 volt in 0.001 millisecond or nanosecond. What I am achieving? I am abusing the device so that the remaining life is reduced. if that particular condition was not made, a particular test was not made, it could have worked for 1 month. Now, because I abused that device, I made that device to operate at dV by dt of 1000 or 10 to the power of 5 volts per second. What I have done, I am reducing the time for it, life of it, to 1 week from 1 month. That is why it is called accelerated aging. Instead of waiting for 15 years, what I do, I abuse the device so that it is aged. It is as good as worked for 15 years. In 1 hour, I can achieve that, or 1 week, I can achieve that. Okay, so the same condition in which the device will reach if it is working continuously for 15 years, I can achieve the same state by within 1 hour. How? By making it operate at increased temperature, making it operate at increased voltage, increased current, increased di by dt, increased dv by dt, etc. So that is called accelerated aging. So there are many methods, standard methods available to age the device. Okay, so either you can resort to any of the standard accelerated aging method and identify which continuously monitor the parameters, all the possible parameters you monitor, and identify which parameter is varying over a period of time. So by monitoring that particular parameter, I can predict that this device is about to fail. That is the role of the precursor. Okay, that is the parameter that changes with degradation. Okay. Possible precursors. As far as MOSFET is concerned, RDS on state resistance. Suppose your MOSFET is having 0.1 milliohm on time resistance. Over a period of time, say 15 years later, it will be having 0.05 milliohm or 0.5 milliohm on state resistance. Understood? So then RDS be continuously monitored. Whenever the RDS on is increased to 0.04, I can give an indication telling that this MOSFET is about to fail. Because I know that after 15 years, if I operate it normally, it will develop an RDS on of 0.05. But now in 1 month, my RDS on is increased to 0.04 milliohm. That is due to aging. Some abuse that must have happened. Maybe due to what we have seen in previous slides, the bonding, the contact failure, or whatever may be the reason, the RDS on increased. So RDS on can be a very good precursor, very effective precursor, so that I can indicate that this device is about to fail. Now you replace so that no problem is there. Or at the end of my travel, this particular trip, I have to replace this MOSFET. Then you can happily go ahead. Okay, so RDS on is a possible precursor. Similarly, gate threshold voltage, what is that? Usually the MOSFET will be turned on volt, maybe 5 volt or more, MOSFET will be turned on. Now tomorrow I am observing that at 5 volt my MOSFET is not turned on, only at 6 volt my MOSFET is turned on. And then tomorrow, day after tomorrow, or after 1 week, I have observed that my MOSFET could be turned on only at 7. So that can be an indication of a possible failure of the MOSFET in due course. So what I have to do, whenever I see that the threshold voltage, means the voltage at which the MOSFET is turned on or IGBT is turned on, is increasing, I have to see that MOSFET or IGBT is replaced in due course to avoid a possible failure unpredicted failure. Okay, yeah. So gate threshold voltage is another possible precursor. When I turn on my MOSFET, the current is taking a transient state. So if you observe the shape of the transient, it is definitely depending upon the intrinsic parameters, the RLC parameters in the circuit decides the ringing shape of the transient of the voltage both. Okay, so you can observe the transient and if there is a change in the transient waveform, for example, the changing or the dead time, I mean settling time is changing. In such cases, you should predict that there is a that is about to fail. Okay, so ringing characteristics can be a precursor. Similar time of the IGBT for a particular circuit, it will be fixed, but over a period of time, the turn on and turn off time can increase. So a drastic increase or change in the on time, off time, ringing characteristics, turning on voltage, threshold voltage, RDS on, all these things can be a possible precursor for you. Okay? Yeah. So that is how you can reach in a conclusion that this device is about to fail. So these are already identified precursors. You can also identify a new precursor. Okay? On state voltage, rise time, junction to case, yeah. So you see a thermal impedance is there between the junction and case. If that is increasing, what will happen? The temperature increase in temperature of the chip also can be predicted as a possible reason for failure, or it can fail in due course. So you have to replace it. So, yeah. SSTDR is another possible way of the condition monitoring in spectrum time domain reflectometry. Here what we are doing is send a non-waveform having a white noise waveform at a edge will be pushed and you observe how is it getting reflected from the circuit back. Any waveform propagated can get reflected. So you intentionally inject a voltage or a current of non-shape. It's a white noise I have told you, and observe the reflected waveform. And if it is for a particular circuit, this reflected waveform will be a constant. It is directly related with the injected waveform. Now, if all on a sudden any of the parameters of this reflected waveform is changing, maybe the shoot, maybe the settling time, maybe the period of ringing, any of this is drastically changed, then can predict that there is going to be a so this the waveform that we transmit, this blue line indicates the waveform which is reflected back, amplified, of course, amplified. So there will be a delay from that is a phase shift definitely will be there, and there will be a change in the magnitude also, but there will be a definite relation between the shape of the reflected waveform and shape of the injected waveform. So that you can identify by correlation. Yeah, there are many correlations available in the statistics. You know, statistical correlations are obtained. So you record the reflected, already know the injected waveform, obtain the correlation between these two so that it should remain same. Correlation is remaining same, no problem. But if at all there is a wide variation in the coefficient of the correlation, you can predict that there is going to be a failure in the near future. So that method is called SSTDR. So it is again a very good method for the prediction of the failure. So all these are methods. Okay, so there are a lot of room for the detection of new precursors, analysis of precursors, identification of the condition based on the precursors, etc. So the challenges are measurement is indispensable. So in some cases, for example, RDS on, how to measure the RDS on? If RDS on is varied, I can predict it, but how to measure? I have to turn off the device and measure it separately. But that is not possible on a vehicle which is already running. So what to do? At the end of the day, you can do that, or identify another parameter which can be monitored on the run itself. Okay, so that they are the challenges. Identify the correct precursors which on the go so that online prediction of the condition can be done. Okay, so measurement is sensors are challenges, then high resolution measuring devices are challenges, recording devices are challenges, and then it involves noise reduction also. You know, in a vehicle, lot of noises will come. We cannot avoid the noises because it is passing through various roads and terrains and then environments. We cannot have any control on the electromagnetic interference. So your prediction device or system, sensors, everything should be electromagnetic susceptible devices. Okay, so they are the challenges for the condition. So yeah, depending upon the operating point, again, and etc. decides the prediction, accuracy of the prediction. So you should arrive in a method which will be more and more accurate. And normal operation, as I have told you, you cannot switch off the MOSFET and measure the RDS on. Find out another method which can measure the RDS on when the system works. Similarly, SSTDR also. I am injecting a signal, but that signal can be of much higher frequency than the operating frequency and much lower level than the operating voltage and current. Okay, so it should not hinder the normal operation of the device in any manner. So they are the challenges. Yeah. So advanced gate ability to measure various voltage current within the devices, it is a positive possibility or improvement in the precursor parameter prediction or condition monitoring. We may have to resort in a measurement window of controlled voltage, etc. So there are all the challenges behind the prediction. Yeah. So accelerated aging, I have already told you, and then using the precursor or the degradation available or the measured parameter, you can reach in a remaining useful time. You can definitely use the machine learning technologies to reach in remaining useful life. Okay, many accelerated aging can be done. Data from that can be used to train the machine learning algorithm and then employ that machine learning algorithm on systems, vehicles, to predict the failure or possible failure after 1 month or 1 year or even 1 hour, so that the unforeseen circumstances can be avoided, can schedule the maintenance. Okay, so I think I can stop my presentation. Definitely a very big area of reliability enhancement in vehicles. So all of you can definitely do a lot of research opportunities are available in the condition monitoring. So this we have just discussed about the devices. A lot of possibilities are there in the condition monitoring of batteries. For example, the state of health and state of charge can be monitored. Its resistance also can be monitored to predict the health condition of the battery. There also lot of research happening, modeling based, circuit based predictions are available. Similarly, motor also. Motor winding failures are available, motor core failures are available, winding also. Stator winding failure, rotor winding failure. So you can monitor the current injected into it, voltage applied into it to identify the condition of the motor. So lot of possibilities are available. Continuously monitor the condition of the motor, that is the status of the machine or the device or the battery or whatever it may be, so that the reliability of the total electric vehicle improves a lot, so that everybody can depend upon a reliable electric vehicle. Thank you all for the patient listening. Any doubts you are having, you can ask me. Sir Kumaravel sir, I have done with. Any doubts? Anybody?
Dear sir, thank you very much, sir, for your elaborative session on conditional monitoring, especially on the modern devices which we use in power electronic devices in electric vehicle application. So this is a time for question and answer session. I request the participants to clarify your doubt. If you have, please.
Maybe being it is a lunch time, everybody will be.
Yeah, I think it's there, sir. They are there. Of course, only slightly 2-3 participants left, and remaining people are here. I think there is a question in the chat box, sir. Which softwares are used for prediction analysis?
As I have told you, FEM systems are available. So FEM you can use to model the devices and system as a whole, and at design stage itself you can predict the total lifetime of the device or the system. For example, in the electric vehicle running in Delhi terrain, you can take the cycles available, which is already studies were made, lot of studies were made to reach in the possible cycle in a area. Okay, so that cycle you take, put it into FEM device, and then meantime between failure, MTBF of the device will be given by the manufacturer of the device. That also can be used in FEM, so that the total lifetime of the device or the system is predicted by the finite element model. Okay, so that can be used to predict the possible failure. Then if you are into condition monitoring, for example, precursor, I identify a precursor values on an intentionally aged device to see the variation. That variation can be given to train a support vector machine. So support vector machine is another possible software, and then this support vector machine model can be employed in a ordinary vehicle which we are now using, so that whenever that parameter is changing, the support vector machine will indicate that this parameter has changed, so that you have to expect a failure in this particular module or this particular device, like that. So machine learning algorithms are softwares used. Then finite element method are available. Then support vector machine is used. So all these machines are softwares are used in condition monitoring. Of course, what you have to do, you have to continuously use sensors to sense the parameters, these sensor outputs are continuously acquired in a digital system using data acquisition systems, processed initially to avoid the unwanted noise pickup, accuracy, etc., and then that can be used in a machine learning algorithm or artificial intelligence or support vector machine, etc., to predict the condition of the device. Is it answering your question?
Thank you, sir, for your elaborate answer. I hope,
Any other doubts?
Yes, sir. I hope there is no other doubt I found. Yeah. So the participants have given very good feedback, sir. You can see in the chat box. So as I already told, we are working. We have a lot of hands-on experience at NIT Calicut. So thank you for sharing such a wonderful feedback. So then, thank you, Jayanand sir, for your tireless effort for the past 1.5 hours in delivering the lecture on condition monitoring of electric vehicle. So thank you all the participants for your patient listening. So with this, we conclude the forenoon session.